Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Back again, ladies and germs, hello. This is the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite Podcasting Network, episode 68. Originally meant to be it is special, but it was meant to be a standalone special. But then because of the consequences of life, Katie's busy schedule, my busy schedule, it's a special regular episode. If that makes any sense to you. Whether it makes sense to you or it doesn't, here we are. I am Charlie Carden. I am your Trek Lord of Western Michigan, captain of the USS Grand Petoskey, a chapter of the Starfleet Star Trek International Fan Club. I am joined as always by my superlative, awesome co-host, Katie Q. Katie, how the heck are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be talking about everything Q.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you jumped ahead in the program.
Oh, no.
Katie Q, the Q. But we've also got, and I have been after this guy for 68 episodes. This is Luke Lore is here with us. He's a Trekker. He's been with us over on SFU. And I am just so happy to have him. Luke, hello.
Hello, thank you for having me. Code 47, Captain's Eyes only.
I just love it when somebody gets that. But what episode is that from?
That is from Conspiracy.
Oh my God! Oh, I'm having a moment.
Do I need to leave you two alone for a
minute? No, there was a moment, but the moment is gone, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. So, okay. Well, without further ado, again, Katie and I were like, hey, let's crank out a special. We'll drop it like in the week in between. But then she said, I got all this stuff. And then I said, I have all this stuff. I'm going to Chicago because April and I are going to Mission Chicago, the huge con that's happening April 8, 9, and 10, which if you're listening to the sound of my voice and you live in the Midwest, it's enormous. It's the first really big Midwestern Star Trek Comic-Con that has happened in 30 years. So it's a big, big deal. Buy your tickets. Everybody's going to be there. It's going to be totally crazy. But I digress. So we decided to make this regular episode 68. It's going to drop at the regular time. But we're going to do a little bit different format with the return of John de Lancie as the omnipotent imp of Q in the current season of Star Trek Picard. Now, are we all... I know an episode dropped today. Did everybody get a chance to see episode 4?
I have not watched yet, so please don't.
We're not talking about it in the slightest. And then, Luke, I know because we had you on SFU that you were at least up on episode 1. Have you continued watching?
I've caught episodes 1 and 2, and 3 is on my queue. I didn't even realize we were at 4. I must have missed a week there, but no, I'm up to 1 and 2, and very pleased with it so far.
I love it. Well, we will not talk about the Star Trek Picard series anymore because I don't want to, throw any potential spoilers out there. But yeah, John de Lancie is back. We saw him at the end of episode 1. He was featured in episode 2, and so on and so forth. But available on Netflix through April 1st and Paramount Plus for the rest of your life, and go out and buy the discs, go out and buy digital. You can experience the 5 great episodes that we're going to talk about from Star Trek The Next Generation that factored very heavily with Q's presence. One of the ones that we left out, Katie and I did speak about recently, but we will give it an honorable mention at the end of the show if that is okay with everybody. Mm-hmm. So I will kick us off, but before I do that, Luke, You're a podcaster in your own right. You're a gamer. First of all, tell us a little bit about how you came to love Star Trek. What is your Trek origin story?
Well, my parents were certainly Trekkers themselves, and Trekkies themselves, I suppose, and they loved all things sci-fi, as did I. My namesake is Luke from Luke Skywalker, and so
wait, that's not right. Oh, sorry.
I grew. What's wrong?
He
just threw the Spock symbol when you...
Oh, gotcha. The video up. I'm so sorry.
Spockin'.
Yeah, there you go. And so, quite frankly, I grew up loving all things sci-fi, and my heroes included, wonderful characters like Superman and Batman, but then also, Luke Skywalker, and Riker was my favorite character. He had such a cool name, Riker. It was just a cool name. I can remember being in kindergarten and getting beat up because I pulled my socks really high because I wanted them to be like the boots of the Starfleet officers. That's a real thing that happened. It happened in the bathroom at my elementary school. They beat me up because I was.
And what's ironic is in TNG they were basically Chino's Beetle boots, because I have a pair that I wear with my uniform. So sorry, I'm sorry you got beat up for that misnomer. In the old series, they had big boots, so I understand.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned Riker, because Katie and I said in one of our breakdowns of season 2 of TNG that season 2 of TNG was basically Riker and Troy, who is taking their pants off this episode. Well, cool. All right. Well, that's awesome. I love it. I love when people embrace the Trek, and I love having people on the show with us. So without further ado, I'm going to launch into the first of the 5 episodes. And where can you start but at the beginning? October of 1987, Encounter at Farpoint. Captain Jean-Luc Picard leads the crew of the USS Enterprise D on its maiden voyage to explore a new planetary station, wanting to trade with the Federation. Along the way, they encounter Q, an omnipotent, extra-dimensional being who challenges humanity as a barbaric, inferior species. Picard and his new crew must hold off Q's challenge and solve the puzzle of Farpoint Station on Deneb 4, a base that is far more than it seems to be. Series premiere. Oh my goodness. Wow. Talk about a section in time. And I'm sure there are many that share my story, but in October of 1987, I was 11 years old. I was in 6th grade. And in May of 1994, when Star Trek Next Generation ended, I was graduating from high school. So the entirety of TNG was my middle school and my high school experience, 7 years. So that is, even though, in a lot of cases, I embraced DS9 a lot more because of the depth of its storytelling, which, of course, Katie and I will talk about in a later episode. TNG, starting with this, will always be an encapsulation of my childhood more in some ways than Star Wars. You know what I mean? It was just absolutely wild. But that's my contribution so far. I want you guys to talk, and I'll circle back. So, Luke, why don't you lead us off?
Specifically about the Q parts of the episode, I loved that he showed up and he was this entity of fear. We got to see more personality in other episodes, of course, but in this one, he was this grand, imposing force that seemed to exist outside of kind of the second story that was playing out with Farpoint. And in your first viewing, you have to be wondering the entire time, is he involved? What's his level of malevolence? Is he... you don't see nearly the comedic elements that you do later on. And so he's so villainous that it's tough to know what to make of him, I suppose, because he shows up in this very old school captain's, armor at one point,
right,
and then changes his accent through the course of the eras. But he's just not as comedic as other times. So he's just so malevolent. I really liked that, but you were never sure where his place was throughout the episode.
Right.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up, Luke, because it was something that rewatching this episode, I hadn't really watched it since I initially saw it, which was my first experience really with Star Trek. And I remember thinking, I'm like, oh my word, this dude's like a crazy psychopath. What is he doing? And the entire time, I just really didn't know where it was going to land. And definitely watching these kind of in succession, you get to see the growth of his character really, really well. And they did just, I think, a phenomenal job overall, kind of bringing in that humor and kind of showing his playfulness a little bit more in the later episodes.
I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Well, I apologize for cutting off. He did something that at the time was wild, because in lecturing Picard about the barbaric elements of humanity, he filled in a lot of the backstory that we hadn't gotten, because we had original trilogy, then we jumped to TNG. We didn't have these going back episodes. So we learned about how humanity suffered numerous setbacks, how they treated their soldiers at one point, controlling people with drugs. Like, there were some really dark depths of humanity that had not been touched on in the Star Trek universe at all. And they did it out the gate with Q kind of lecturing them about it.
Yeah,
right.
They really made it seem like watching this, it honestly, it felt more like a movie than what we had, the Insurrection movie we watched last week.
Oh boy.
Where it was like very much like holistic, and even though, like you were saying,
the opposite,
the Q storyline with the Farpoint really had nothing to do with one another, except for Q coming in and being like, "Ooh, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?" And kind of like messing with stuff a little bit. It really didn't have any connecting tissue, but it still felt much more connected. And it really, like, after watching that episode, I was like, yes, this is Star Trek. Like, there is intrigue, there's a little bit of action, but there's just a lot of like big philosophical questions where you're forced to look at, like what you're saying, Luke, kind of that the dirty underside of what it means to be human and interacting with the world, and the challenge that come with having to find compromise, and how you kind of come to accept that and grow from it.
Bingo, dingo. I really loved in this, and I think we'll find in subsequent episodes, is that Q, while he might portray and somewhat impishly suggest that he's controlling events, he's really doing the big nudge to push our characters to discovering a mystery that they might otherwise miss. You know, the ultimate mystery of this, and I'm sorry, after 35 years, if I'm spoiling this for you, that Farpoint Station is a living creature that has been enslaved by the Bandai, the race that is on Deneb 4, to use its powers as to basically support their society. And Enterprise, in the end, is able to set this creature free when its mate appears in space above it, and then essentially, rains hellfire down on the planet to free it. But again, it's Q being very deceptive and nudging in the direction to help our characters kind of understand it. So I like that. I think it kind of sets the tone. Again, at age 11, I wouldn't say there was a ton of it that I really glommed at that age, but as I've continued to watch it in the last 35 years, that is really what I've kind of come to think of it. So, great kickoff to the series. Again, some of it is very dated. Some of it is very 80s, I think. I do still love the jumpsuits. I do own one. I wore one at a convention recently. It's super uncomfortable, which is why we'll end up back on our display mannequins for our booth at our next show. I don't know that I'll wear it again, because I tell you, even with the shapewear, all the sucking in, no matter how many crunches I do, that's a tough one for me. But anyway, final thoughts before we move on to the next episode.
Just a great way to start TNG.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Also in season 1, we have the episode Hyde and Q. Luke, if you wouldn't mind recapping that.
Hyde and Q is the episode in which Q returns to the Enterprise, testing Commander Riker by giving him the power of the Q. And I actually just watched this one today, Charlie. I have a lot of thoughts on it. Do you want me to just go right in?
By all means, please.
Indeed, I will. So I actually really liked this episode because it's very much a one-off in a time where we were, they were experimenting with longer storylines, but season 1 was really a lot smaller and sectional. And I really liked this episode because we saw a much more comedic version of Q than we had in Encounter at Farpoint, an entirely different side to this malevolent personality that seemed to, after playing Judge in the previous episode, was now almost trying to teach lessons and experiment with humanity a bit. Interestingly, one of my favorite parts is where Picard almost in a rival sense, or the first time we truly see a rivalry, he said, "So you're taking on Riker now? Excellent. He'll defeat you just as easily as I did." And That was a cool line. Funnily enough, Riker overacted in the entire episode to kind of
big time
accommodate, and it just seemed funny because, he gets so infatuated so quickly with this power, and a lot of questions could be asked. But we saw a lot of other cool elements of this. We saw Data kind of exploring his memory banks. We saw Worf show some of his warrior prowess, and Tasha cried, and Picard showed some empathy in a different way.
That was a first, particularly after his speech in the previous episode where he says, "I don't like children, but I need to project an impression that I am. So Riker, that's your job, to make me likable, because I'm not likable." But yeah, you're right. He did show real empathy and care for Tasha's plight. And so, yeah, that was the first kind of sign. That was actually some significant character development, I would think, for Picard in this episode.
I agree. Katie? What do you think?
Yeah. I thought that it was really great. I do agree with the Riker overacting. One of my favorite parts was when it like kind of like the traditional cut to commercial break, and you had like Riker like he's just got his like chest out and he's standing there looking down at it. I'm like, okay, I get it. You're tall. Yes, I understand. It's
that's me. Wait, there you go. That's me.
Yeah, but just totally puffing out. Yes, that's a great way to describe it. So it was very, very fun. But I do agree, because the first time you see Q, at Farpoint, he does have this kind of almost Prime Directive, but in a different sense, as far as he's like, no, I am the higher power. I am judging you based off of these, like this criteria. And it seems like he does have a higher sense of morality. And then you see in Hayden Q, he's like just kind of, like you said, like kind of almost experimenting with him and becoming much more whimsical with what he's doing. He's dressing everybody up in elaborate costumes again, as he does. Q loves him some fashion. Let's be real. Anytime he can get in a goofy costume,
snazzy, you bet.
But I do love, like you were saying, the development with Picard and just the confidence that they allow Picard to show in his team, where there's never a doubt in his mind, really, at least when he's talking with Q, and even when he's talking with Riker, and it seems like Riker might be setting up to be like, I don't know, I might keep the powers. He is like, come on, dude, that's not you. We both know this. Let's have a bigger thing. I did think it was really interesting that they did think to write Diana off of this episode, because she immediately, they say at the beginning of the episode, she's off. She's visiting Beta Z, because like as soon as this happens with Riker, I was like, wait, where's Diana in all this?
Because, it would throw it right off, because she would talk him down. I was saying, like, she is his moral compass, and he needed to be absent of that for this episode. So I did
like that they rather than have it be kind of that moment of stupidity that they like to give her when something just like when they just don't want her to be able to be into it, where they instead were just like, nope, she's just going to be off on this episode because we don't want her interfering with this part.
Right. Which, thankfully they don't do that in a lot of later episodes, but this did, while I didn't think it was a bad episode, it did suffer from a lot of that early series, or playing around, trying to figure out who the characters are. And then, but again, ignoring one of the most important TNG relationships, which is the connection between the two of them, which was firmly established in the first episode. So, well, cool. Well, for the sake of time, let's keep things moving forward. We move on to season 3's Deja Q. And Katie, this one's yours.
Yes. Q is seeking asylum on the Enterprise after he has been thrown out of the Continuum and stripped of his powers.
By Corbin Burnson.
Yes.
Which I loved. Oh, my goodness.
This one was probably one of my favorites just because Data. I'm a sucker for Data, and I loved the play, especially Data just coming right out and being like, you have what I have been seeking, or what I have been trying to emulate, which is humanity. And Q just constantly suffering through it. And it was, again, Charlie, you and I have talked a little bit about the issues of pride between Picard and Q, and how Q is very self-serving and his pride and ego are very much self-involved, where Picard's is more external, where his pride comes in his ship and in his crew and what they can accomplish as a team.
Right.
And it seems like you kind of, again, got more of that play and that duality between them. And it was shown a little bit more with the Data. And watching Q grow, it seemed like that helped as far as this future morality. And it's honestly made me very curious as to how they're going to be going forward with Picard, because Q is like starting to take some really hard lessons on how he can behave and how he can act around creatures that might not be quite as powerful as the Continuum.
I think you'll find an interesting wrinkle in episode 4 that will speak to that. So, but I shall say no more. I enjoyed this episode again very much. Little trivia fact: John Delancey did appear fully nude in that first scene where he appears on the bridge. And it was weird because I have the old Star Trek: The Next Generation compendium in print, which I read when I was a kid. They filmed this over Thanksgiving weekend in 1990, where Jean Delancey appeared au naturel in front of the bridge crew. Oh my goodness. Katie, I have to absolutely agree with you. You said it's a humanizing moment for Q, for him to be taught humanity from the non-human or even corporeal member of the crew, Data, and his selflessness and how he puts himself out there. This also really reflects on Q's interaction again, which was Q Who, which was the episode, our honorable mention that we'll talk about at the end of the episode, where we learned that Guinan and Q have a past history. It's nice to see her jump back in and kind of twist the knife, quite literally, with him in this a little bit. So yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Luke, your thoughts, please.
I thought it was fantastic. Great episode. We did get to see Guinan's hatred for Q kind of begin, which was really interesting as she stabbed him with a fork. To start off with John de Lancie being fully nude there really had viewers questioning the seriousness, because if it was kind of the next time we saw Q, which version were we getting? The comedic silly one or the violent one that enjoyed toying with people? And in many ways, despite being powerless, he still toyed with the crew at various levels, and they had to exercise their own level of humanity, which, if the trial never ends, could have been shown there as they are trying to tolerate him at various points. I thought this was one of the better Q episodes for sure. And John de Lancie really got a chance to shine in a very different way. Watching Data tend to him was perhaps my favorite part, as Data tried to accommodate these needs, not getting upset, but trying to observe, hey, maybe if you weren't such a jerk, they would.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I think maybe just a little bit. Well, go ahead, Katie, please.
Oh, I say, and I think the giving of a gift to Data of giving him laughter at the end of it was so
great.
Was so pure and just so wholesome, and it felt like a real learning experience for Q too, because in our previous episode with the Hide Q, where Riker, the first thing he tries to do is give Data humanity. Like, that was the thing that they kept saying, that the Qs were like, oh, if Data wanted something, it'd be humanity. And then in this one, the first thing Data says is, don't make me human. I don't want humanity. I just want to experience what they experience. And so Q, it was showing that he'd learned, showing that he'd listened, and was like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna give you a moment of revelry, which was absolutely adorable. And of course, Brett Spinner, amazing.
I totally agree. And it's one of those awesome memes that you see absolutely everywhere. But anyway, moving on to the next episode. This was probably, I would almost say it was my favorite of the ones, because it kind of feels like it touches me personally. Tapestry, season 6. Season 6 was actually the only season in TNG where Q appeared twice, because he was in an episode early in the season called oh my God, I can't remember the name of the episode, but there was a young woman, and she was a Q, but she was discovering her powers.
I got that one.
Please,
I got that one.
I'm drawing.
True Q? Was that True Q?
It's super rare that I forget the name of an episode, so thank you very much. But anyway, True Q, I believe you're absolutely, Hayden Q was it, But anyway, this episode was called Tapestry. After being attacked on a away mission, Picard dies again, and meets Q in the afterlife, who offers him the chance to change a crucial moment in his history and prevents the mistakes he made in his youth. Oh, I adore this episode. This was my senior year in high school, if I'm not mistaken, because it was season 6, or no, junior in high school. Sorry. And it's weird, the station that we had here to show it in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where Katie and I live, was Channel 3, and they would sometimes show it after a basketball game. So it was one of these I might have to stay up till midnight to tape it or so, because I always taped them. I was such a super nerd in high school. I taped all my episodes, paused out the commercials. I love this one especially. I like the flashback to the past, because you get to see the Monster Maroon, which is the beauty of all Star Trek uniforms, the cosplay that is the Great White Buffalo that I feel like I will never own because it's so damned expensive. But there is no one on Earth who doesn't have regrets about their past. And they don't say, oh, if I would have done X, Y, Z, my life would have been great. I've been divorced twice, and I can say, oh my God, if I never would have married ex-wife number 1, then XYZ, or ex-wife number 2, XYZ. But how would that otherwise have affected my life? How would I have not experienced this thing or that thing because I let go of that experience? And that is what this episode did for me. It was this great lesson, not only for Picard, but for me, to the entirety of the audience. I found it to be one of the more powerful episodes of the series to me, and certainly, like I said, I love Farpoint, and then I love All Good Things, which is the final episode of the series that we'll talk about in a moment here. But this, to me, was the most powerful. Absolutely, because it showed that you just have to live life, and you have to fuck up, pardon me for saying so, and you have to dust yourself off, and you got to keep on trucking, which is my personal motto. because that is just the way things work. You learn and you move forward, and certain opportunities are missed. But it's the I never saw Ashton Kutcher in the damn Butterfly Effect, which is funny because my wife and I are watching that '70s show right now on disc, and I know I never saw those movies because they look so awful. But it's the same thing, stepping on a butterfly in the past, which is something that came up in Star Trek Picard because they're in the past right now. That you will screw up the entirety of your life if you do, and that's exactly what Picard does, and he circles it back around. So anyway, I feel like I was on a soapbox for that one, so somebody else start talking.
Go ahead, Katie.
Oh, I was like, Luke, I want to hear your thoughts actually on it.
Okay, so I absolutely adored the lesson. One of the things about Q consistently as he puts humanity on trial, from the most serious to the most cavalier, he's constantly trying to teach a lesson, and I don't think any episode was better at doing that than this one. And to your point, Charlie, we all have things we regret, some of us very intensely, and when you think back and you think, if I had the ability to wave my hand and wipe my slate clean, or to absolve myself of my sins and fix the young, arrogant version of myself to the more wisdomatic version I am now, if I could do that, what would happen? And we get to see Picard go through that, and as a result, he ends up giving one of his most passionate speeches in my mind, where he says, "I cannot live out my life as that man, devoid of passion and something."
Imagination, yeah.
Imagination. Okay, yeah. That to me was one of my favorite Picard moments of anything we've ever seen in any version, because it's true. He was an impotent, weak-willed man, which is so different than this roguish captain that handled the Stargazer versus this very wisdomatic man who needed geniality to handle families on board, while he commanded the flagship of the Federation and warded off the Borg and was instrumental in stopping the Sona, because those were a big deal in Insurrection.
Clearly, and as you heard in our last episode, where we showed a lot of reverence for that movie.
Yeah, right. So for all the powerful moments that the series has given us, it was Q who gave one of my favorite moments with Picard in that blue uniform, and Troy and Riker just blew him off. And it was they were like, to watch that.
Bro, you suck. You're kind of nothing, and you'll always be. So yeah, they kind of told him suck. So he said, you know what, I got to kind of get. What's ironic is, of course, now Picard is an android, so it doesn't really matter that he had an artificial heart. But yeah, so oops, that was in season 1. I didn't spoil that. Oh my goodness, Katie, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I have to agree that I loved the idea and the themes of it. I don't really love the specifics of the execution, because I thought he was still taking risks. Like, he went forward on a relationship that he had always regretted. He literally tackled his best friend and risked losing that relationship rather than having them get hurt. So when they were like, "Oh, well, no, you don't take risks. You're like totally milquetoast," I was like, okay, he did get stabbed through the heart, but okay. So like, it was kind of one of those like back and forth, but I did really love just, again, the relationship between Q and Picard, and those big moments that they have where they give these really beautiful, really intuitive speeches, or I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of right now. But just are very intimate speeches as far as like the passion that's there and the reasoning why he is the way that he is. So I thought that was really, really great in those senses.
Excellent. Awesome. Good deal. All right. We're down to the 5-minute drill here, because I know that we're on time, but we're going to talk about all good things series finale. Who's up? Luke, is this you? Go for it.
Is it me? Yes.
Why not?
Picard learns from Q that he is to be the cause of the annihilation of humanity, and begins an incredible journey through time, from the present to the past, where he first took command of the Enterprise, to 25 years into the future. Of course, this was the season finale.
Series finale.
That's what I meant.
Yes, of course. I know that. Wow. Holy shit. This was the absolute biggest of the big deals. And again, this aired in May of 1994, which is when I was graduating from high school. So my life was changing as well, but I was saying goodbye to Star Trek The Next Generation, I thought, because we did get a movie afterwards. But This one was kind of a weird one because, especially when I look at it in reference to the episode that preceded it, it wasn't really much of a wower. I thought that Q did certainly what he did in the first episode, and of course there was a significant corollary between this and Encounter at Farpoint because there were scenes set prior to that film when Picard took command of the Enterprise and left space dock, yada yada yada. Then we saw this future which didn't come to pass, and then the present, and it ultimately had to align all three in order to solve this weird mystery. And again, it was Q saying, well, it's your fault because you created this anomaly because blah blah blah, and I've kind of helped you along the path to discover it, and now you've saved humanity, and now the show's over. So as finales go, there are better ones, but it's not a bad story to kind of wrap up TNG, with the exception of the absolutely ludicrous romance between Worf and Troy. Just don't. It's a no for me, dog. I'm going to go full Randy Jackson on that one. 7 thumbs down.
I loved all good things except for the Troy part. I loved All Good Things. I thought that was a fantastic series finale. So I don't know if I'm in the minority on that, but I thought it was powerful. It was fun. I liked seeing Q mock Picard in a different way, especially when he was old. I really liked that.
Yeah, with that big beard.
Yeah,
yeah.
And then seeing Tasha back, it was really nice and wholesome, and kind of one of my favorite moments also was actually the absence of Q when Picard started yelling at the sky, and the crew's like, all right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, all right.
Old man yells out loud.
They're like, oh God, what the hell are we doing here? Shit, I should have been on a cruise ship.
It was weird.
Oh my goodness. But Katie, your thoughts, please.
I thought it was fantastic. So Luke, I don't think you're necessarily the minority with this one. It had, I think, a lot of really great notes that harkened back to the original, Farpoint episode, but it was definitely more Q is in humanity's corner at this point, and you could really feel that. And I think that it had a lot of themes as far as having to give up, having to move on, because you had, Picard. This is the first time that we find out that he does have some sort of, neurological degradation disorder or, disease that could at some point impact his life, and him having to come to terms with that, as well as him having to come to terms with the life that he could live and the life that he, has lived. So it's a lot of kind of the same themes that we've been seeing all throughout TNG, just wrapped up in this really beautiful story that's done all at once. And even at the end, when you have all of the, people, or you have the entire bridge crew together, they're playing cards as they have through TNG kind of throughout. And you find out that Picard told them the entire thing, even though they didn't actually remember what was going on. And they have this discussion about, well, why would he say that? We probably shouldn't have known that. And they say, well, maybe it's to prevent us all from kind of drifting apart and having those falling outs, because Picard understood the, beauty of those relationships. Again, when you have the guy at Farpoint who's like, I don't like kids, I don't really like people, but I have to be genial, so help me out with this. And it ends with him sitting in a table playing poker with his entire bridge crew going, I should have done this before.
Mm-hmm. 100% agreed. No, I thought that ending was exactly what the series needed. Mm-hmm. Exactly what the series needed to wrap things up. So, and speaking of wrapping up, we ran a little over. I know we said 30 minutes because I know, Luke, you had that was kind of what you were looking for. But I know, Luke, that you wanted to give us a rundown of kind of how you wanted to rank them. So go for it.
Okay, my favorite Q episodes, beginning with the best and ending with the worst. All Good Things, followed by Deja Q, Encounter at Farpoint, Tapestry, Hiding Q. Weirdly, Q Who ended up at number 6 for me out of the TNG episodes. Mm-hmm. True Q, number 7, and in a distant, far, absolute worst possible was Cupid. I did not like that episode at all.
It was not great at all. Well, I in ranking just the ones that we have here, because I want to jump on the bandwagon. Tapestry is my favorite, certainly followed by Farpoint. I then liked Deja Q. All good things, and then finally Hide Q. Even though it's a Riker episode, still ends up at the bottom.
I would say probably Deja Q, All Good Things, Farpoint, Hide and Q, and then Tapestry for me.
Oh man, ouch! Poor Tapestry. Oh well, with that, we will wrap it up. Luke, thank you so much for joining us. This
Yes, thank you.
Surely should not be an isolated incident. You are an exceptional podcaster. I love working with you, so we have to do this some more. So thank you very much. Tell people quickly, please, where they can find you out there on the internets.
Of course, if you're on Twitter, you can find me at Insipid Ghost. You'll find the majority of my content is gaming related. I host a podcast called the Xbox Expansion Pass, in which I interview a number of developers throughout the gaming industry and look at the gaming news as it pertains to the Xbox ecosystem. It is family friendly, and there's often a lot of developers on there from all around the world. So I would welcome any of you fellow trekkers as well as gamers kind of overlapping. It would be a joy to have you.
Rock and roll. This was the greatest. Thank you very much, Luke. It's so great to have you here. Katie, if you would be so kind, take us out.
Yes, you can find us online at the new secretfriendsunite.com and hit us up at Secret Friends Unite on Twitter. Let us know what you are doing and what you're enjoying in the Trek world. And you could subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as visit us on TeePublic for all kinds of swag.
You got it. All right, friends. Thank you, as always, for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring and to keep on trekking.
And wherever you go, go boldly.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at teepublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.